I want to talk about this offense, and I know it's something that pinch me if you've heard that before, right? This West Coast this perceived change of the offense, John, for our next segment is what I want to talk about. And you're bringing Mannion and Grizzard and Mahaffey and all these younger coaches with the potential of the new change coming to the Eagles offense. And somebody brought up this to me yesterday on a super chat, and I thought it was interesting, and I wanted to get your thought on it. Because we've been wondering what level of West Coast are they going to run? Is it just going to be, they're going to try and fit a square peg in a round hole here? Or is it going to be a modified version? Are they going to try and build it around their players? And somebody brought this up to me. The Doug Pederson hybrid West Coast offense. If anybody remembers when Doug was hired and he talked about the hybrid West Coast approach, he had some RPOs heavy in there. He had 12 and 13 personnel in there. It was a timing-based system, but it was also quarterback-friendly, and it was also built, to accentuate the talents of your players. John, maybe it sounds a little bit like that's what Sean Mannion and co. need to do with the Eagles. Is that a fair way to look at maybe this is what the Eagles are going to try and do with their version of the West Coast?
Well, I hope so. I said that's what people should be rooting for. I think you should be very upset. I mean, that's, I appreciate the super chatter, and I know this is part of Nick Sirianni's problem as a head coach. I do this show every day, basically, and, people hear my voice and probably stop listening at some point because I say the same things. The burden of leadership is repetition. Now, I'm not leading, but the hammer at home. I how many times have I said good coaching is taking advantage of what you have? Now don't hire a scheme because eventually you're going to have to move off that scheme. And good coaches, and Doug was a good coach here. Yeah, you really want to go. They completely changed late in the season when Carson Wentz got hurt. And Nick Foles had to come in. And again, revisionist history, people forget how bad he was in the regular season. And to the point where Doug said, and he tasked John D. Filippo with that job mainly, it's like, all right, we gotta build this thing around Nick Foles. We got to do what he's comfortable with. One of the things is RPOs, not and really more zone reads in the case of Nick Foles because you don't have the running option factored in, but same mechanics, and a lot of quick stuff and a lot of and obviously the rest is history. And they basically remade the whole offense, and it worked. And John got a lot of credit. Unfortunately, he got the offensive coordinator job with Minnesota. He didn't last the season because Mike Zimmer was out there and wanted him to hand the ball off all the time. And John was not happy, and he was not happy. But anyway, yeah, I mean, that's the definition of every good coach. And you saw it this year with Sean McVay. Completely changed because he had to. And I say, there's so many, and I get it because fans are steered that way because I'm on Twitter. I see it all, x.com. Sorry, Elon. You're inundated with this is what they're going to do. This is what they're going to do. And I'm like, if this is what they're going to do with Sean Mannion sucks. Because as the Larry Karras quote to Nick Sirianni, you don't even know who your players are going to be. Shut up about what you're going to do. You got to build the offense around the personnel you have. Now, again, you can have those foundational concepts, and you should have those foundational concepts of what you want to run in a perfect situation. And you always have that in the back of your mind. If I can get this, this is where I want to be. And this is my belief system. There's nothing wrong with having that. But if you have that belief system and you're going to play it by hook or by crook, no matter who you have, you're a bad football coach. You are a bad football coach. And I'm glad it resonated with somebody else, with Doug, because it's a cliche for a reason, man. If you're hiring a scheme, you're doing it wrong.
Cyclical life we live, circular life. We're back. The Doug Pederson West Coast approach could be back, folks, which I like. Good thing there. John, one of the things that sticks out, though, when you think about that Doug Pederson hybrid approach that he had, and obviously had great success with it. I know it didn't end the way some wanted it to end, but he did have great success with it. And obviously, this will change based on the personnel in the Eagles, just like you just laid out. When you're a good coach, you adapt to who you have personnel-wise. But Doug used a lot of 12 and 13 personnel, to create the mismatches and to do different things, multiple tight end sets. John, the Eagles better get some tight ends, dude. I don't know if it's going to be Dallas Goedert or somebody else, but they need not one tight end. They need multiple tight ends, I think.
Yeah, they probably are going to add multiple tight ends at some point, but that's the point. You obviously you need a certain number to play the game. But I mean, if you have good tight ends, you're going to utilize them. I mean, Doug had Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert came the year after the Super Bowl. Think about that level for a short period when they were together. You're going to utilize it more versus if you have a weak group at the tight end. And that's kind of the whole point. Okay, well, Sean McVay had a weak group, at least by his standards, at wide receiver depth-wise. Obviously, we're not talking at the top, but depth-wise, he had a weaker group, and he had a stronger tight end group than he ever had before. So he utilized the tight ends more. I mean, to me, it's so simple. And so many people don't recognize it. It's like you don't need, because Doug Pederson used a lot of two tight ends. You don't need two tight ends to run with that. Doug would have run something different if his wide receivers stunk for the most part.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
I mean, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't explain it well. You tell me, Zander.
No,
I think people look at it backward. They're looking at it completely backward of what it is. It's not, oh, you need to get these tight ends. It's you need to take advantage of the good players you get, and you're at the mercy of the free agent market and the mercy of the draft and how the draft board falls. Again, when you're picking 23rd like the Eagles are, I guarantee you they're not getting who they want at 23 in the best case world. Now, they'll say it. They got them. Unless you're number one, you're probably not getting the guy you wanted in the NFL draft. Certain exceptions, obviously. This year, I think you're going to have a quarterback who's probably not worthy of going number one, and maybe number two gets the player they want. But you get the point. Very few people get, actually, even when it works out like a gangbusters like Quinyon Mitchell a couple years ago. Well, they really wanted the offensive lineman that went to Pittsburgh, but he went 2 spots earlier. So yeah, I mean, it's not about getting 2 tight ends to be successful like Doug was. It's about getting good players. Maybe they get a receiver. Like I said, that's the deepest position. There's a crap load of receivers. Maybe they keep A.J. Brown and get another receiver. And all of a sudden, Sean Mannion's cooking with gas with 3 big-time receivers.
Yeah, right. I don't know about that, John, but maybe, man, maybe.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's the forward way to think about it, rather than, oh, this is what Doug did in 2018, so this is how you have to build. I mean, that's backward.
Doug, do you want to be the quarterback's coach, Doug? Come on into Philly. Listen to this, John. This sounds like this is my expectation of what the Eagles are going to do this year, or close to it. I was reading this last night about Doug after this comment, and I'm like, let me go do some research on that. Doug Pederson blends the traditional West Coast focus on short passing and pacing with the throw deep mentality that was often used by Frank Reich, allowing for a good mix of ball control and explosive plays. I'm like, boy, I think that's what they're going to do this year.
Well, the Eagles have always been hyper-focused on explosive plays.
I don't think they're going to get rid of that.
No, that's a common theme in the NFL. They're not like unique. I mean, the two stats that NFL teams look at the most are turnovers and explosive play rate. And if you win them both, you generally win the game. So that's built into it. The question is, and you can get them. I mean, what was so unique about 2024 is how many explosive plays they got in the running game, which generally doesn't happen that much. And that's why probably it wasn't sustainable, because you can't get that many explosive plays in the running game in a normal season. And I have to sort of better, I think, navigate the risk aversion to get more explosive plays, and occasionally, live with the occasional interception, maybe, and just be more dynamic and more, just put more pressure on the defenses. But I saw an interesting, I think it was Nate Tice, who does a good job with film stuff. The biggest, and I agreed. After I read it, I agreed with it, and I was like, the biggest, because offenses as a whole, I think, obviously we're an Eagles show, so we're Eagles centric, but I said pretty clearly, there were worse offenses than the Philadelphia Eagles, a lot worse offenses than the Philadelphia Eagles. Offense has become a problem in this league to the point where I think they're going to start changing rules again to help the offense, unfortunately. But we'll see how that part of it shakes out. But the biggest problem is pass protection. It's just, especially in third and longs, where you got all these, and you saw it in Seattle, you got all these chaos defensive coordinators now who follow in the mold of Brian Flores, and you saw what Seattle did with the Witherspoon blitzes in the Super Bowl, and these teams just don't adjust and can't pass protect and can't handle the pressure, and that turns into ugly offense. Not only ineffective, but ugly looking aesthetically. And I think that's what's going on in a lot of the league. And, Nate said there's probably like 4 or 5 guys in the world who can adjust protections the right way to stop these things. And until they fix that, you're going to have some ugly offense in this league.
No doubt about it, John. Good stuff there. Good segment on the potential for the Doug Pederson looking very, I don't want to dub at that, but, Doug, I thought, did do a good job at having a hybrid approach. And I do think if Sean Mannion, John, like you say, if he's a good coach, then he will have a similar approach that is tailored to the skill set of the players on the Eagles. And we will see what the players on the Eagles look like there.